Michigan Democratic State Representative Rajiv Puri is a majority whip in Lansing, in the state capital. He released a blistering statement on the shooting today, starting with F your thoughts and prayers. Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost is a Democrat of Florida. He served as the national organizing director for March for Our Lives, an organization founded after Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, which happened 5 years ago today. Thank you both for joining me tonight. State Representative, let me start with you first and just see how you and the folks there in Lansing are doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris. I want to offer my deepest condolences to the entire Michigan State University community, the victims, families. My heart goes out to everyone affected. You know, here in Michigan, and I think largely across the country, we are all Spartan strong today and will continue to be so until we see meaningful change.
Let me follow up with that. What does Democrats now control both houses in Michigan and the governor? It's been a while since that happened. What does meaningful change mean to you from the perspective of a legislator?
Well, you know, I think the voters spoke in November. They voted for gun sense candidates, which led to gun sense majorities in the House, Senate, and the governor's office, like you mentioned. The governor led the way in the State of the State a few weeks ago to set out a roadmap of kind of what we're going to be doing here with common sense gun reform. And so, you know, for me, I don't think there's any more gray area with this issue. You're either going to be a part of the solution or you're not. And if you're not, you're going to have to get out of the way and let us do our job. You know, and my comments, as you mentioned, may hit a nerve, but it's inflammatory language. If that's what it's going to take to help move this conversation or be a small piece of it, you know, we'll gladly take that fall 10 out of 10 times. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, the voters spoke last November. And, you know, there are common sense gun reform packages that my colleagues and I are diligently working on. We are canvassing a holistic set of stakeholders to make sure that legislation is effective, equitable, defensible. And these are bills that have been introduced around the country in a number of states, proven to be effective, held up to litigation. And so we're excited to move the conversation past platitudes to real policy change and change the lives of the people of Michigan.
You know, there's something, there's two aspects to America's, I mean, there's gun violence in America, right, broadly. And the majority of the people that lose their lives to guns are suicides. And then there's homicides. And then there's the specific experience of the mass shooting, which is, it really is uniquely American and also sort of uniquely generational. I mean, and I was really struck by this. I want to read this to you. This is a mother of Emma, who's a freshman who survived the Oxford, Michigan shooting. Mm-hmm. It sucks to even say this, but she knows what's coming over the next few days and how to deal with her trauma and what's going to happen with vigils and the folks who are experiencing it for the first time. I was so struck by that, about the generational effect of this and how much it's, you know, like the 50s footage of the air raid drills, like how generationally traumatic it is for the folks your age.
Yeah, I mean, and I usually say, look, I'm Gen Z, but I also believe that we are the mass shooting generation. I mean, if you ask most Gen Zers their experience going through middle school and high school, it feels like we've been through more mass shooting drills than fire drills. Mm-hmm. You know, just this morning, I was in Parkland with Congressman Jared Moskowitz, one of my colleagues, and we were talking about the fact that this morning we're seeing the press conference in Michigan. We're going to see the vigils going on, and it's almost like this cycle, right? We know what the routine is. The shooting happens, there's a press conference, there's outrage in the community, there's a vigil, and then people move on, unfortunately. But, you know, who doesn't move on? The families who lost their loved ones, the community that has a scar in it. And, you know, we know this in Orlando when we lost 49 lives due to armed bigotry and hate at Pulse nightclub. And so it's incumbent upon us, especially as leaders, to continue to bring this issue up every single day, because every day we'll lose 100 lives due to gun violence.
That brings me back to you, Representative, who, again, is in a position to do that. You talked about, you know, model legislation in other places, survive litigation. Michigan is a state that's a closely divided state where the politics of guns are complicated. There's a lot of gun owners in Michigan. I'm sure that you have folks in your district already lighting up your phones about this. How do you negotiate that?
I think the key here is to stick to the facts, right? These conversations about guns and the politicalization becomes very divisive. But if you stick to the facts, none of these common sense reforms are going to take away guns from law-abiding citizens. Those are fallacies that are quickly intentionally used to dispel kind of what we're actually trying to accomplish. And so, we are just trying to do policies that have been enacted all over the country in various states, in various forms that have proven to be effective. And have wide bipartisan support. And so, again, these are just common sense solutions that will curb senseless gun violence and really try to put an end to this epidemic that our country is facing.
There's a paradox at the heart of gun reform. Anything small enough, common sense enough, bipartisan enough to not create massive backlash is probably too small to deal with the magnitude of the problem.
Yeah, but not always. There's things, we know universal background checks are championed by the majority of Republicans, NRA members. It's overwhelmingly popular, but it can't pass in the House because the definition of bipartisanship for all of us means what we can get together on. Right. The definition of bipartisanship in Congress is what the NRA is okay with.
Right.
When we think about another thing, right, like extended waiting day periods. If we had real waiting day periods in this country, we could cut gun violence almost in half because it can prevent folks taking their own life with a gun. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do, that are common sense reform.
That can have a real impact.
That can have a real impact, but this is part of the problem with money in politics and the fact that the NRA owns a lot of these politicians.
That second stat is really interesting. Mm-hmm. Suicide, gun violence, and waiting day periods is a really specific approach for that. Michigan State Representative Ranjit Puri, thank you for making time on a very difficult day, and Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost, thank you. Thank you both.